Hello everybody, welcome back to another SUPboarder video. This is a video that a lot of you are going to be watching because you're going to want to hear our impressions and thoughts of the new generation inflatable, brand new for 2023. Well, let's just make this review very easy and very quick. This board is absolutely fantastic. It does everything the generation does, but is it the board for you? That is the question, because there are some drawbacks or things you need to be aware of before you go and place an order down to get the generation. It is an outstanding board, but is it the right board for you? Make sure you check out the full video to find out if it is. So in this video, I'm going to give you a really good summary and comparison of the two boards, but also giving you a bit more of a review of the inflatable generation. Now, I have reviewed lots of generations in the past. Definitely check out some of those videos. Also, I've compared it to stuff like the Starboard All-Star, the full-on race board. So if you're interested in understanding a bit more about the generation and definitely the composite one, definitely have a look at those videos as well. Remember, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please give it a subscribe. There's loads of videos on there and it'll really help you save a bit of money by buying the right product for you or learning the best technique. So first off, what boards have they got in the range? The generation in the composite version, you've got several different constructions. The carbon top and the light tech, which is the board I have here, are the most popular. You can also get an ASAP and a new Rhino construction just in the 12-foot 6x30 size. Looking at the sizes of the composite boards, you can get a 14-foot by 30, a 14-foot by 28, and a 14-foot by 26. With the 12.6 sizes, you can get a 12.6 by 30, which is the size we have here, and a 12.6 by 28 and a 12.6 by 26. With the inflatable version, they only make a 12.6 by 30. And that's why we've been testing these two boards alongside each other, because they are exactly the same size. The prices for the light tech construction are sitting around £1,249 or around $1,559 or euros. For the inflatable version, you're looking at sitting around £1,099 or $1,199 or euros. If you want to be looking towards a lighter, more performance carbon top board, you're going to be looking at the £2,049. So big jump up in price there. Giving you a few more specifications about the inflatable board. So this board is 6 inches thick and it brings the volume at 341 litres. When we weighed this board, it came in at just under 11 kilograms, which is a fairly good weight for a big inflatable paddleboard. And a rider weight is probably going to take people up to about 110 kilograms, very similar to the composite 12-foot 6, of course. A quick recap about the Starboard Generation. The Generation is a board designed to let you do all types of paddling, let you experience all types of paddling. It could be flat water paddling, it could be coastal paddling in flat water, it could be coastal paddling in wavy conditions, it could be downwind paddling, it could be SUP surfing when it's small, it could be SUP surfing when it's a little bit bigger. Maybe you even want to start entering races, get into a fitness paddling, go fishing, take the dog on the front, put the kids on the front. It's a board that does do it all. And I've said it in the past review, everybody should own a generation, and we still stand by that. It's a very strong statement, but it is a very good board. So with the new inflatable board, they are trying to replicate as much of that on this board as possible. Now I'm going to tell you, you're not going to achieve every single one of those things at that level that the original generation did, because you can't get that composite bottom shape into an inflatable paddleboard. There's lots of things you can do which really will help it feel like that, but you can't do it all of those things. So you're never going to expect an inflatable paddleboard to be exactly the same as a composite board. We've said that in loads of other videos in the past, but what have they done to make it feel as close to its composite brother? The outline shape of these boards is very close, as close as I think they can physically get it with obviously the construction process of it being inflatable. The rocker line is a very big point to speak about. That's the curve of the board from the front along to the back. generally known as nose rocker up at the front or tail kick at the back. Having rocker on the board allows your board to work much better in choppy waters, open waters, moving waves, downwinding conditions. It has actually got, and it needs more rocker than its composite brother. All inflatable paddleboards will need a little bit more rocker because as you're moving around the board, it doesn't react as quickly than a composite board. Up at the front of the board, you've got a large bungee area, just like on the composite board. You've got a nice big deck pad. This is the Diamond Grip crocodile style deck pad, so it's very, very grippy and it's very, very comfy. The nice thing is the deck pad, it goes right to the back of the tail, and you've got a nice tail kick pad or stomp pad at the back there that you're going to be putting your foot against when you're doing your step back turns, when you're surfing. Still has the ability to have a shoulder strap, and it comes as standard with a shoulder strap, and I personally find that that shoulder strap can stay on the board most of the time in all the conditions I've been using it. If you're using it in more extreme conditions, you can opt to take it off, but it's a great handy thing to have. In the middle of the board, you've got a large, comfortable, easy to get your hand around carry handle. And it's nicely in the middle of the board. Sounds like an obvious thing to say, but so many brands get it wrong. It's not balanced right. Before I turn this board over, I want to talk about the construction of this board. So the deluxe board from Starboard has a pretty standout construction. For a start, their internal core is Starboard's woven drop stitch, a much lighter, better quality drop stitch, going to give you loads more stiffness and response. The drop stitch is then fused to the outer layer of PVC. The silver material around the rails are Starboard's 2000D galvanized rails. But this year they've introduced this parabolic rail, which is also using materials on the top and the bottom of the board to really give the board way more stiffness. And to finish the board off, on top of that, the rail band is welded as well, which is basically where instead of sticking the materials together, they mechanically heat and melt 2 layers of PVC and then bond them together. Talking about the stiffness and looking at the board in our deflection test, because this is a very big pro with this board. Now, the inflation pressure for this is 15 to 18 psi. Now, we pumped it up to 18 psi to give it its best shot as being as stiff as possible. We put it on our deflection test, which is where we put it on a gap of 1.5 meters apart, and we put a weight of 75 kilograms in the center of the board, and then we measure how much the board bends or deflects. Now, a very bendy board nowadays is sitting at around 22, 23 millimeters, and that would be a board that's 6 inches thick, because that makes a difference to the stiffness as well. The stiffest board we've ever tested has been 7 millimeters, okay? And that was a heavy board as well. That was near the 14 kilograms in weight. Now this board dropped 8 millimeters. So yes, it's not quite the stiffest board we've ever tested, but for the weight as well, this board is incredibly stiff. So the stuff that they're putting on these rails, into new parabolic rails, the multiple layers of material and the welded rails is making this board stiff. So well done Starboard, really big thumbs up for that one. So by turning the board over, you can see that parabolic rail. And another thing, remember, the more material, the more layers you have on your rails, the stronger your board is. Moving towards the back of the board, they've got a rail edge. Now we've seen this on some of their surf SUPs and the other race boards. It's really just to increase the water flow as it moves off the back of the board, to make the board paddle faster, to make it release quicker. And it definitely helps when it comes to surfing, paddling fast, downwinding, trying to get the board to that top speed. And another thing that really does help increase the top speed is the fin boxes and the way that they're shaped. The center fin is like a teardrop sort of shape. Starboard actually say this is going to reduce drag by up to 50% compared to a normal fin box. And this is a very slimline fin box. Even the FCS fin boxes at side there, they're nicely hydrodynamically shaped as well. The fins you get with the package, you get an 8-inch center fin. That's quite a traditional sort of surf shape fin, very much like the composite board. This one is made out of upcycled fishing nets, so it's basically recycled plastic. A nice stiff fin, doesn't weigh that much. And the side fins, you get 2 4.5-inch side fins. These are the balsa bioresin fins, very nice fins. So it's nice that you're getting a nice fin setup with this board. And you'll also see there's a towing eye up at the front underneath the board as well. And the rest of the package you get as standard. You get a very nice wheelie bag that is made of recycled bottles. It fits the board in really well and it's very comfortable to carry down. We did actually carry this board down a fairly big cliff and the backpack really wasn't much of them at all. You also get Starboard's fantastic pump, which is a sort of breed up from the Bravo Super Pump. It's got foldable foot pegs, it's got much nicer handles, and it's a little bit smoother to use. It's a double action pump, so it pumps on the upstroke and the downstroke, and then when the pumping gets hard, you can turn it over just to pump on the downstroke. Very nice pump, and it does get the air in the board very quickly, even for a board of this size. And as standard, you do get Starboard's lightweight leash, which is nice to have for when you're paddling on flat water, when the conditions are really calm. Definitely if you're looking at going SUP surfing like we did, we took a straight leash, and if you're looking for doing more all-round types of paddling, a nice good quality Starboard coiled leash is a good move as well. Right, so let's move on to the comparison between the composite 12-foot 6x30 compared to the inflatable 12-foot 6x30. What is the big differences you're going to feel straight away? The number one thing you are going to feel when you first take your board anywhere is obviously the transport of the board. We carry these boards down a great big cliff, and whoever had the backpack, which was Lucy at this point, had a much easier carry down the cliff. I was carrying the bigger board and it's up near 17 kilos. It does weigh a lot and you are going to have some serious arm cramp. The backpack, obviously, you can see there's a major pro to that. When you get down the beach or at your paddle location, yes, if you are looking towards an inflatable, you are going to have to pump up your board unless you brought it already inflated. Maybe you have an electric pump, but if you're using the standard starboard pump, it does get the air in the board pretty quick and it doesn't even take that much effort. Obviously, a big thing to note right here is because it's inflatable, it doesn't matter where you pump it up, what you put it on, what sort of ground you put it on. When you're looking at your composite board, you are going to be a little bit more scared about how you put your board down and where you put your board down. Moving out into the water, transporting to the water, nice big deep recessed carry handle on the composite board, nice carry handle on the inflatable, both balanced in the center of the board, easy to get down to the water's edge. But the inflatable is easier to carry because it is lighter. When you're moving out onto the water, the first thing you're going to notice is when you're standing in your normal paddling position, the stability between the two boards is very, very similar. There isn't a massive difference in them. But if you start to move around the board, maybe step your footwork back to do a step back turn, turning around to catch a wave, you are going to find there's a big difference in stability between the inflatable and the composite. Which one is the most stable? It is actually the composite. The composite board, it gives you a lot more stability compared to the inflatable. Now this is for a number of reasons. With an inflatable paddleboard, you've got a 6-inch thick rail going from the nose all the way to the tail. With the composite board, you're looking about 6.3 inches in the widest place, but it does thin down towards the tail. Now, as you walk back on your board, you're going to get water that's going to wrap around the rails of the board, and that's actually going to give you a little bit more stability. It's going to make the board feel less corky and floaty. Now, if you're a heavier person, 100 kilos, 95 kilos, this will feel a little bit better for you because you've got more weight at the back of the board. But for us at 75, 85, 70 kilos when we were testing it, we were finding that definitely the composite board was more stable when we're moving around the board. Nothing to do with the stiffness. These boards are obviously both stiff. The inflatable is still incredibly stiff. It doesn't really feel like an inflatable in that sense. So putting it into practice, if you're going to be turning to catch waves, if you're going to be doing race step back turns in choppier conditions, the composite board is easier to do that. Let's talk about top speed, overall speed, what it's like to paddle with a bit more power. You are going to notice this very clearly as well. The composite board is heavier. This one in the light tech, of course, is the heaviest. The carbon top is going to be lighter. You will feel that when you start to paddle, it takes longer to get up to that top speed. The inflatable is way lighter, a few paddle strokes, and you're actually paddling faster than you would be on the composite board. Now the top speed may be arguably about the same because when you have the momentum going of this composite board, the board does like to keep on going, keep on catching that wave, keep you on pumping and punching through those waves. The inflatable being a little bit lighter, you're going to have to keep those repetitions and those paddle strokes up. But I would say they feel about the same in their top end speed. But personally, I do like the pickup speed of this inflatable better than its hard composite brother. To give you an idea of when this might be an issue or a good thing or a bad thing is, let's say we're catching a little wave. Let's say we're turning to catch a wave and the wave isn't that far away. Let's say it's like 10 meters away and it's coming towards us. We've got to sprint quite quickly to catch that wave, because any of these bigger boards, you need to get that momentum up. With this board, the inflatable, you're going to catch that wave way earlier and quicker, because you're going to be at that top speed before the composite board. The composite board needs a bit more of a run up, but when you've got that run up, it's going to glide onto that wave really well. If we're talking about riding waves and catching waves, having the board nice and long with that nice rail edge at the back there just gets you on those waves super early. It's such a fun board to have on a summer's day, or even on a winter's day. You want a board to go out and catch loads of waves on. The Generation composite or inflatable are boards that will going to get you into loads and loads of waves. When you're on the wave, which board is better? I can tell you now that the composite board is going to be easier to surf, and it's going to give you that more top end performance because it's got more of that progressive rail shape towards the tail. The rails are more pulled in, they're sharper, there's a little bit more release at the back there. The inflatable has got the rail edge at the back, but bear in mind this is a big 6-inch thick rail throughout the whole of the board. Just like with your step back turns, if you can bring your rail and thin it down towards the tail of the board, it's going to give you that more performance when you go to turn the board. So to put that into context for you, when you go to turn your board with the inflatable board, you're going to have to be really near the back of the board to do all types of turns. And if you really want to throw the board around, you're going to have to be right with your foot back on the stomp pad. But with the composite board, you're going to be able to turn off much further forward off the board, be able to trim into the waves and turn on the waves further forward on the board. It's still going to require you to step back on the board to really bank the turns much harder, but because it's got that better rail shape, it's not going to require so much foot movement. There is a little point to bring up there because of the board's weight. When you are turning a big board plus 11 foot long, let's say, if you're turning right on the back of the board, you've got a lot of board sticking out in the air. The more weight you've got on the top of the board, the more swing weight you're going to have, the slower it's going to turn. The more that you stand back, the more the nose is going to want to pull back down towards the water. And that was really clear between the inflatable and the composite. The composite's easy to turn, but it's also heavier to turn as well. Now, of course, I am talking about the Generation a lot in the surf, but please bear in mind you can relate all of this stuff to downwinding, catching little bumps on estuaries. It's still the same sort of stuff we're looking for out of a board. When it comes to paddling and chop, paddling through bumps, paddling over waves, you're going to find the composite board's going to be nicer. It's got that extra weight to give it that push, to give it over that wave, through that chop. And also the rails are a little bit more thinned down. There's a better profile to the nose. Naturally, that's going to make the composite board work way better. The inflatable, you are going to be able to punch through chop, you are going to be able to go over waves, but it's going to require a little bit more of a technique to get used to that. Now I want to talk about the rocker line of the inflatable Generation, because a lot of clips you'll notice that there's quite a lot of rocker on this board. You can even maybe see a little bit of the tail sticking out of the water, and obviously you've got definitely the nose sticking out of the water. Now in moving water, surf, all these sorts of environments, rocker is a really good thing to have an inflatable paddleboard. The reason this is because inflatable boards love to nosedive, okay? Whether you're SUP surfing, whether you're catching your first bump on your 10.6, the nose is always wanting to go down the wave face. Now, having a little bit more kick at the nose really will help you keep that board out of the water. And Starboard have completely nailed the rocker line shape for this and an inflatable paddleboard. It's so good in surf, in chop, in windy conditions. It just really handles itself very, very well. So it may look a little bit different on flat water, but it really does work well in those moving and open water states. Bringing that onto flat water, mirror flat water, it is going to be a hindrance. It's not going to make your board as quick. It's not going to paddle as quick as the composite board. Now, it's worth noting that composite boards have always got flatter rocker lines compared to inflatable paddle boards, because they can have a little bit more nose and rail and bottom shape up at the front. And as you move around the board is going to react much quicker on a composite board compared to an inflatable, which is why the rocker needs to be a little bit more exaggerated. So composite boards always have less rocker, which would make them naturally faster on flat water, and you will feel that the standard composite Generation is quicker on flat water than the inflatable Generation. Before I wrap into a summary of the two boards, some cons or observations, things you need to be aware of about the new generation. First one, it's a very small one, but it's a bit of a niggle. Towing eye under the front of the board. Don't really think it's needed at the bottom of the board. It could have been to put at the top of the board. It's a pro and con. Some people might love a towing eye. We don't personally think it's very needed. Another observation, which is a pro and a con really, is the board rolls up incredibly tightly. You can get this board really rolled up small. I don't know what they've done with the rails because there's loads of rail material here, but you can get it really rolled up really small, which is obviously a pro. But when you get to the back of the fin box, you're gonna have to be really aware that you don't fold your fin boxes and give pressure on the fin boxes. You wanna make sure you get your folds correctly so your fin boxes end without them being loaded on the corners of those fin boxes. It's definitely an observation, this one. You're gonna soon get the hang of rolling it, but we noticed that is something you're definitely gonna have to be aware of. To give you a summary and looking at who should be potentially buying the inflatable generation from Starboard. So in summary, Starboard have made a fantastic board with this inflatable. Just like I said at the beginning of the video, this is a very good board. It complements its hard brother very, very well, and it does everything a hard brother can do, and it can do it pretty well, which is very strong praise considering this is an inflatable paddleboard. You're never gonna have that same performance as you are as composite board, okay? It's going to be close, but it's never going to be the same. There are some major pros to this though: the weight, the speed, the pickup. Obviously it goes in a backpack, it rolls up really small. There's loads of really good pros. If you're going to be looking at this board, yeah, you could be paddling it up to 110 kilos. You're going to be really happy with this board up to about 100 kilos, I think, for most people. But the big caveat, the thing I want to make sure is I want to make sure you're buying this board for the right conditions. You've got to be looking at paddling, I would say, open water, surf, sea, downwind, chop, 60% of the time at least, okay? If you're looking at maybe paddling flat water 60% of the time, 70% of the time, I would probably say go and look at a Starboard touring board. Go and look at a board with a flatter rocker line. The rocker line is a really great thing to have, but you've got to be using it in those open water conditions. You've got to be taking it out in the surf, and that's when you're going to get the most out of it. So if you're not going to be paddling it in the sea that much, look towards a Starboard touring board. There's fantastic boards, fantastic sizes in that range. If you do want one board that will do everything in all types of paddling, maybe not be the fastest on flat water, but you really want to get out in the waves and have it in a bag, the Starboard Generation is the board to have. I said it in the last review, everybody should have a generation, and now I think even more people will have a generation. So I hope you found that review interesting and informative, helped you understand if this board is right for you. If you've used one of these, demoed one of these, if you own one already, let us know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your feedback. No doubt you're all going to be raving about it, I can tell. We will see you on another SUPboarder video real soon. Make sure you check out SUPboarder Mag, our main website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and for more great videos and extra content, check out SUPboarder Pro. We'll see you next time. Happy paddling.